So today the topic of our presentation is parallel comparison of history of English language and history of English literature. In our presentation, we will discuss the different literary ages of English literature and what is the influence of English language on those all ages. We will cover all these ages in our presentation and will discuss the influence of English language. So start with a brief introduction of history of English language in which we discuss that whatever the language we use nowadays that is the modern English but that can't come emerge directly because English language was also a combination of other language which includes Latin, German and फ्रांस बिकॉज जब भी जर्मनिक ट्राइब जैसे हमारे पास एंग्लो सेक्सन ज्यूट्स जब इंग्लैंड के अंदर आए थे तो उनकी जो लैंग्वेज थी वो डिफरेंट थी लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल कुछ ट्राइब्स की लैंग्वेज लैटिन थी जर्मन फ्रेंच तो ये डिफरेंट लैंग्वेजेस मिलके जो है इंग्लिश लैंग्वेज बनी थी तब हमारे पास जो है तब रोमन जो है डोमिनेंट था रोमन जो है डोमिनेंट था बिफोर तो तब लैंग्वेज जो थी हमारे पास लैटिन थी उसके बाद ओल्ड इंग्लिश आए नॉर्मल कॉन्क्वेस्ट हुआ फिर मिडिल इंग्लिश आए तो जैसे डिफरेंट एजेस आई तो उसके बाद जो लैंग्वेज हुई वो शिफ्ट होने लगी तो स्टार्टिंग में ओल्ड इंग्लिश हुई अब हमारे पास जो है मॉडर्न इंग्लिश है. Like for example, in English we have the many words which we take say that that is taken from the Latin language. Like in the biology and other many subjects, we say that this is word is derived from the Latin language. So English language has also impact of all other languages. Furthermore, we will discuss the introduction of history of English literature. In this history of English literature, we will cover the different ages, which includes the old works like Beowulf and the Middle English, which was also known as the Chaucer's age because the work of Chaucer contemporary tales in which he discussed the different characters of the society, that what are the characters, what are the people with their minds with different stereotypes exist in our society. Then we have the Renaissance period, which is also known as the Shakespearean period because most of the contribution was given, most of the literary work were given by Shakespeare. Then we have the romantic era. Then we have the Victorian modernism and postmodernism. So these are the literary ages we will cover in the history of English literature. Further, Ali Hassan will continue the four different ages which includes Old English, Middle English, Renaissance, Neoclassical age, and Romantic age, Victorian era, Edwardian era, and Modernist period will discussed by me.
Assalamu alaikum. So I will continue further. First of all, we have English period. So if we talk about the language point of view, then we have two tribes. First one is Angles and second one is Saxons. So basically these were two tribes. They migrated from Germany to England, and when they migrated, they brought their language with them, which was Old English. Okay, actually their language gave birth to Old English language. The early form of the English language, it was only spoken, or not only spoken, it was mostly spoken and evolved through the oral tradition, because at that time there was no concept to write many things. Only few things we have found in from that. We have Beowulf, many writers, historians, and many people believe that this poem is also considered as the oldest English script or the first ever poem of English language. But the writer of this poem is anonymous. Okay. So this talks about the old linguistic structure, and this also tells us about the storytelling and how people express themselves and their culture with the language. If you analyze this poem, you come to know very uh, broader themes. You can come to know that how people used to narrate these their culture, how the culture of that time was present, how, what were the themes of literature at that time. If you analyze this poem, you come to know about that. Then we have this Middle English period. Okay, so Middle English is all about the Norman conquest. These were the people. They introduced their language. They attacked on these Angles and Saxons and killed them, and they brought their own language, which was French. So when French came into England, it changed Old English to Middle English. The linguistic fusion is evident in vocabulary. We can come to know about this language that there was a French influence on the Middle English by the vocabulary. There are many words in English language which are borrowed from the French words. There are many words which are present in English language. Then we have the example of from literature. Okay, if we see Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, it is considered as the masterpiece of the Geoffrey Chaucer. It not only talks about the language of their time, but it also talks about the cultural narratives of that time. If you read this poem, you come to know that what were these aristocratic people they think, what were their happenings, what they do, and what was the corruption of church. Actually, this whole work criticizes the mostly religion from church to the common people. This work also divide people into three categories. The first one was church people, then we have chivalry people, then we have lower class people. Okay, so basically, if you analyze this poem, you come to know that there are many words which are from French language and some are from English language, but you analyze if you clearly or if you critically analyze this poem, this will talk about both language as well as the themes of their time. Okay, after that we have this Renaissance period. So Renaissance brought a revival of classical learning impacting both language and literature. Actually, it is not all about language and literature, but Renaissance has a great impact not only literature language, but has also impact on science and politics. These were also some ideas, or these were also some things which were impacted by the Renaissance movement. It led to linguistic experimentation and borrowing of classical words. How the classical words were borrowed? Actually, this is because William Shakespeare. Okay, William Shakespeare's plays in English in early modern English are celebrated not only for their literary balance, because William Shakespeare is also a very big personality in English language. He is considered the big dramatist of the Renaissance age. But if you analyze his work, you come to know that he has introduced many words in English language. He coined many new words, enriched expressions, contributed significantly to the development of English language. If you see that he was the first person who introduced new words. For example, in old concept there was a concept of tragedy and comedy, but he was the first person who coined tragedy as well as comedy and made it tragicomedy. This is a great example. Okay, basically this is from the theme point of view, but there were many words which he introduced in the English language. So after that we have neoclassical age. Okay, they emphasized on clarity, not only clarity of language but ideas. There, because before this people were following the Greeks, the old peoples, but these people they uh, focused on the clarity. They focused that the idea should be clear, order, reason. And now these things also they followed in language. They, according to them, their language should be the clear, ordered, and reason. Language become a tool clear for clear communication. They started a very simple or clear language to forward their ideas. If we see dictionary standardization, Samuel Johnson's monumental work, A Dictionary of English Language. Now, this is one of the brilliant work of the Samuel Johnson's. Actually, this took him from 5 to 7 years to complete this dictionary. Standardization, spelling and definition just become a linguistic authority influencing not only the language usage but also literary expression. Now, if you analyze his this dictionary, you come to know that he was a person who introduced who put many words from English language into his dictionary, and he made a complete register for the English language. Before that, there was no concept of writing dictionary in English language. So he was the first person who wrote dictionary which had the words from English and France and from other languages. Actually, English has borrowed words from many languages, so not only from the France, but there were many languages whose words were present in this dictionary. Okay, so then we have the satire and mob epic. Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock exemplifies neoclassical linguistic ideas. If you analyze this work, you come to know that what kind of language was used by these neoclassical peoples. Pop sitar not only adheres to linguistic norms but also critiques and shapes literary conventions. Actually, before that, there was not very much concept of.
So again, let's start with the Romantic period. So first, I will discuss about the background of the Romantic period. It was a time of French Revolution between 1789 to 1799. It influenced all other European countries. Therefore, in France, everyone was inspired by liberty, equality, and fraternity ideas. Not only France, but all other European countries were inspired. Britain was more influenced because Britain was one who bring democracy and also secularism. Britain also, but the people of the Britain also believe that all humans are equal and get equal rights. Apart from that, all other social movements occurred, such as abolition of slave trade. Many other initiatives were taken for poor reliefs. Moreover, improvement of prison condition was also be introduced and also be mentioned that we have to improve the prison conditions, ensure the purpose of the society. Or people just want to bring a change into the society. Apart from that, technology also become advanced, so the use of machines become increased. On those days, England was suffered by a problem. There is many of Irish people were coming into the Britain, so the clash happened between Irish and Britain. In England, slums were increasing. Many soldiers were returning from their jobs because no need of soldiers. Unemployment also happened a lot on that days in England. Because of unemployment, people are that Britain people, our government faced the economic depression. Now start towards moving toward the Romantic age, a Romantic period. The literary output of this period was heavily dominated by imagination, because इस एज का जो मेन थीम था वो था इमेजिनेशन, नेचर, इमोशंस, फीलिंग्स. बिकॉज इससे पहले जो लोग थे वो ज़्यादा मटीरियलिस्टिक हो गए थे, लेकिन इस जो एज का मेन मोटिव था वो था कि लोगों के अंदर की जो फीलिंग्स है, वो इमोशंस है, उसके बारे में डिस्कस किया जाता था. तो मोस्टली इट वाज बिलीव दैट द स्टार्ट ऑफ दिस एज वाज after the publication of Lyrical Ballad, and Lyrical Ballad was the work of S.T. Coleridge and William Wordsworth. So it was believed that the start of Romantic age was start when after the publication of Lyrical Ballad. There was a four main genres of this age: poetry, non-fiction, fiction, and dramas. But the main prominent genre of this age is poetry. And the contribution of poetry, main contribution of the poetry was William Wordsworth. He was also known as for the poet laureate in 1843. So in lyrical ballad, we have total 23 poems, in which we have 19 William Wordsworth poem and fourth S.T. Coleridge poems. And in this, apart from that, William Wordsworth also wrote so many other works, which includes preface to lyrical ballad, in which he will also discuss the theory of poetry. थ्योरी ऑफ पोइट्री में इसने ये डिस्कस किया है कि इंसान के अंदर जब इमोशंस और फीलिंग्स जो है वो हद से ज़्यादा बढ़ जाती है, तभी इंसान के अंदर जो है पोइट्री और वो आइडियाज़ आता है, जब वो उस आइडियाज़ को एक्सप्रेस करता है, एंड डेट इज़ बेसिकली नोन एज द पोइट्री. If you can see the famous writer of this romantic period, because most of the focus of this age was on emotions, feelings, nature. All other ideas were not probably dominated apart from the emotions and feelings. The first main famous writers is William Wordsworth. He wrote a preface to lyrical ballad and also wrote other many works. Jane Austen, who wrote Pride and Prejudice. जॉन कीज who write the Ode to Nightingale. Ode to Nightingale में जो है वो एक नाइटिंगल से बात करता है, जिसमें वो अपने पर्सनल कॉम्प्रोमाइजेस, सेक्रीफाइसेस और प्रॉब्लम्स नाइटिंगल से डिस्कस करता है. अपार्ट फ्रॉम देट, एस.टी. कोलरिज वो रोट द राइम ऑफ एंशिएंट मैरिनर. ये भी जो है पार्ट है लिरिकल बैलेट का, और इसके अंदर जो है इसने सुपर नेचुरल एलिमेंट्स को नेचुरल एलिमेंट्स से कंपेयर किया है, एंड ही वाज आल्सो द वन हु यूज द सुपर नेचुरल एलिमेंट्स. और इसमें द राइम ऑफ द एंशिएंट मैरिनर में भी इसने सुपर. Now we can see the what type of language were used in this romantic period, that includes the poetic and expressive language. Romantic poets such as William Wordsworth and S.T. Coleridge favored poetic and expressive language. They evoke deep emotions and often use vivid imaginary metaphor and symbolism. The second is simplicity and nature. There was a shift towards simplicity and a return to nature in language use. Romantic writers were inspired by the beauty of natural world, and this was reflected in their choice of words and description. Third is individualism and subjectivity. Their emphasis on individualism and subjective experiences influenced language use. Writers express personal feelings and perspective, contributing to a more in perspective and emotionally charged changing issues and languages. The fourth is nationalistic tone. With the rise of nationalism, language became a tool for expressing national identity. There was a conscious effort to use language that reflected the cultural heritage of the English people. Then the next is innovative vocabulary. The Romantic era witnessed an expansion of the English vocabulary. Poets and writers coined new words or revived old ones to capture the nature of their thoughts and feelings. And the last is narrative experiments. So they whatever they feel, they express all their feelings through different words, like in the form of poetry, especially. Now the second age is the Victorian age. After the Romantic age, there was a Victorian age. It was started in 1837 and ended in 1901. So this the name of this age was given because of Queen Victoria, because इस जो एज में रूल किया था वो रूल किया था क्वीन विक्टोरिया ने. ये जो एज थे इसमें इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन बहुत ज़्यादा डोमिनेंट थी, बिकॉज मोस्ट ऑफ द पीपल हु वर रिच डेट बिकम द रिचर, और जो पुअर थे वो ज़्यादातर पुअर होते रहे थे. साइंस बहुत ज़्यादा डोमिनेंट थी. चार्ल्स डार्विन की थ्योरी ऑफ इवोल्यूशन, उसकी वजह से जो है रिलीजन पे भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा सवाल उठ रहे थे. सम ऑफ द पीपल बिलीव दैट वेयर इज गॉड एंड ऑल दैट. स्लेवरी एवोल्यूशन एक्ट भी आया था, फैक्ट्री एक्ट आया था, जिसमें दे मेंशन दैट चिल्ड्रन शुड नॉट वर्क इन द factories. Chartism was a working class movement. So basically, the main motive of Victorian era, we can see there was an industrialization, class conflicts, और जो most of the people were moving towards the fashion that especially women का जो main focus था वो फैशन की तरफ था. मतलब अपने आप को इस तरह से रेडी करना ताकि वो एक अच्छे से गेटअप में और एक मेल को इम्प्रेस कर सकें. और बहुत सारे जो लोग थे वो इंडस्ट्रीज़ की तरफ जा रहे थे. इवन द बच्चे जो थे वो इंडस्ट्रीज़ में काम कर रहे थे. तो उसकी वजह से मैनी ऑफ द पीपल बच्चे जो है वो अपनी ज़िंदगी भी खो रहे थे. एंड अपार्ट ऑफ दैट वी सी द अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट इन दिस एरा. सो इसमें जो मोस्ट फेमस जो यानरा था वो नोवेल डोमिनेंट था, और हमारे पास फेमस पोइट भी थे जिसमें अल्फ्रेड रोड टेनिसन है, रॉबर्ट वाइनिंग है, मैथ्यू ऑर्नेडे. ड्रामा अगर हम देखें तो उसमें टॉम रॉबिस्टन है, जिसका वर्क है सोसाइटी जो 1865 में पब्लिश हुआ था, कास्ट 1867, प्ले 1868, स्कूल 1869. एंड कप एंड सोसर ड्रामास आर दोज ड्रामास which were based on daily problems. And the second another dramatist we have the Henry Ibsen, who wrote the Pillars of Society and the Dollhouse. Now the main other dramatist was Oscar Wilde, who wrote about the realistic dramas, means whatever the problems they are related to the realistic, a real approach of life, like a woman of no importance and the importance of being honest. Now, the main novel, the main genre of this age is novel, in which we discuss about the Charles Dickens, whose most motive, most subject of the writing the novel was humanitarian. So the example, the novel which he wrote, which include A Tale of Two Cities, Hard Times, Oliver Twist, A Bleak House. Another dramatist we have William Makepeace Thackeray, who wrote mostly the satiristic work, in which we have Vanity Fair. Another novelist we have the George Eliot. जॉर्ज इलियट बेसिकली ये जो है एक मेरी यानी एक फीमेल राइटर थी जिसने अपना नाम जो था वो चेंज करके जॉर्ज रखा था, बिकॉज विक्टोरियन इरा में ये कॉन्सेप्ट था कि जो फीमेल्स हैं वो अपना काम खुद पब्लिश नहीं कर सकती, बिकॉज विक्टोरियन इरा में जो इन फीमेल्स को इतनी ज़्यादा परमिशन नहीं थी, क्योंकि अगर कोई भी फीमेल राइटर अपना वर्क लिखती है तो उस वर्क को इतनी ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस नहीं दी जाती और उस वर्क को पढ़ा भी नहीं जाता. तो इसके जो नॉवेल्स होते थे वो मॉरल फिलोसफिकल होते हैं. The two main novel of George Eliot was Middlemarch and Last Mariner. Let's talk about the language in the Victorian era. So writers in the Victorian era typically followed a formal elaborated style of language because जो Victorian era के writers जो थे उनको language of style जो था वो थोड़ा complex structure use करते थे, like in the रोमांटिक एरिया जो राइटर्स थे वो रस्टिक और सिंपल लैंग्वेज यूज़ करते थे. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट विक्टोरियन एरा में जो लैंग्वेज थी वो थोड़ी कॉम्प्लेक्स थी बिकॉज उनकी जो फोकस होता था वो मोरल वैल्यूज़ पे होता था रादर देन इमोशंस और फीलिंग्स. और उसमें जो है वो सोशल इश्यूज़ को डिस्कस करते थे और उनके जो आइडियाज़ थे वो पूरी डेप्थ तक डिस्कस करते थे चीज़ों को. लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल सोशल इश्यूज उस टाइम पे सोसाइटी में जो होते थे, सोशल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स, क्लास कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स एंड अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट, ऑल अदर थिंग्स. तो राइटर्स हमारे पास जैसे थे चार्ल्स डिकेन, तो वो उनके जो वर्क्स थे उनमें जो वो लैंग्वेज यूज़ करते थे वो विविड लैंग्वेज होती थी और करेक्टर डिस्क्रिप्शन होती थी वो भी ज़्यादा होती थी ताकि वो उस पूरे करेक्टर को जो है इजीली डिफाइन करें. उनके जो नॉवेल्स थे उनमें करेक्टर्स भी बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़ करते थे. लाइक हेमलेट के अंदर हमारे पास है करेक्टर्स बहुत ज़्यादा. तो चार्ल्स डिकेन के भी जो नॉवल थे उसमें भी करेक्टर्स ज़्यादा यूज़ होते. For example, A Tale of Two Cities that was written by Charles Dickens. It was the best of time and it was the worst of time. इसके अंदर जो है different anti we can say the paradox and the different style of the writing were used because it was discussing the best of time and the worst of time, two condition at the times, because it has a different style of writing. Now we had the Edwardian period. It is also considered in the Victorian period, but इसको अलग भी पढ़ा जाता है लेकिन मोस्टली वी कंसिडर द पार्ट ऑफ द विक्टोरियन पीरियड. एडवर्डियन इरा इसका नाम इसलिए दिया गया था बिकॉज ऑफ द एडवर्ड सेवन, किंग एडवर्ड सेवन की वजह से इसको जो है इस पीरियड को नाम दिया गया था. इसके अंदर कुछ सोशल चेंजेस आई थी, कुछ टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट आई थी और फैशन जो है लाइक फैशन स्पेशली फॉर इन फीमेल्स वो बहुत ज़्यादा डोमिनेंट था और क्लास डिस्टिंक्शन थी. मीन्स पुअर, रिच, एलीट, मिडिल, इन क्लास में ज़्यादा डिफरेंस था. मेजर जो राइटर्स थे इसमें इस एज में हमारे पास ई.एम. फोस्टर था जिसका मेजर वर्क था अ रूम विथ अ व्यू. हॉवर्ड्स एंड जोसेफ कॉनराड जिसका वर्क था अंडर वेस्टर्न आइज एंड चांस. जॉर्ज बर्नार्ड शॉ जिसका पाइगमेलियन, मैन एंड सुपरमैन. H.G. वेल्स जिसके वर्क थी द न्यू मैकेवेली, द वार इन द ईयर. नाउ जो लैंग्वेज जो इस एज में यूज़ होती थी वो सटायर एंड आयरनी. फॉर एग्जांपल जो भी बात इन्हें कहनी होती थी तो वो जो लैंग्वेज यूज़ करते थे वो सटायर और आयरनी के तौर पे जो है वो यूज़ करते थे. आयरनी जैसे हमारे पास वर्क है H.G. वेल्स का द न्यू मैकेवेली एंड सोशल कमेंट्री के बेस पे जो हमारे पास वर्क है वो जॉर्ज बर्नर्ड शॉ का पैगमेलियन. और जो सिंबलिज्म वो यूज़ करते थे उस पर हमारे पास है वर्जीनिया वुल्फ का नाइट एंड डे. और वर्जीनिया वुल्फ वो राइटर थी जिसका जो कॉन्शियसनेस और अनकॉन्शियसनेस के ऊपर जो है बात करते थे. Then the last stage which I will discuss is the modernism period. ये जो स्टार्ट हुई थी 1901 में और एंड हुई थी 1945. ये अपोज टू द विक्टोरियन एरा बिकॉज विक्टोरियन एरा या कोई भी एज उसमें जो है मेन चीज़ जो होती थी वो हम डिस्कस करते थे एक में फीलिंग्स थे इंडस्ट्रीज. बट इसमें जो मेन फोकस होता था वो ह्यूमन पे होता था. इस पीरियड के अंदर कुछ भी चीज़ जो है वो परमानेंट नहीं थी. सब चीज़ें जो है टाइम के साथ चेंज होती थी. हर चीज़ जो है उस पर क्वेश्चन किया जाता था. फॉर एग्जांपल ये दुनिया है तो किसने बनाई है, अगर खुदा है तो कहाँ है, अगर खुदा इस दुनिया का हिस्सा है तो इस दुनिया में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स क्यों हो रहे हैं. रेडिकल चेंजेस कम इन द आर्टिस्टिक स्टैंडर्ड्स. विक्टोरियन एक्सेप्टेड द वॉइस ऑफ अथॉरिटी. मतलब हर किसी के इंडिविजुअल के पास अपना राइट था, हर कोई अपने को डिफरेंट कॉन्सेप्ट दे रहा था. किसी को भी कोई भी कंप्लेन हो रही थी तो वो डिफरेंट क्वेश्चन रेज कर रहा था. मॉडर्नर्स डिड नॉट टेक एनीथिंग एज ग्रांटेड. कोई भी चीज़ जो है फिक्स नहीं थी, हर चीज़ जो है टाइम के साथ चेंज हो रही थी. बर्नर्ड शॉ टेक ऑन द ओल्ड सुपरस्टिशन. और जो बर्नर्ड शॉ थी उसने ओल्ड सुपरस्टिशन रिलीजन अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट जो साइंटिफिक न्यू सुपरस्टिशन साइंस थी उसके बाद उस पर भी डिस्कस किया था. उन्होंने जो है वॉइस ऑफ अथॉरिटी मीन्स के वी कैन से दे चैलेंज द गॉड. पीपल प्रोड्यूस द इंट्रोगेटिव हैबिट्स ऑफ माइंड्स. Marital property is material property is essential. Means what are the material things in their lives they have become more important. Sex no longer remained mystery. For example, other ages we say that biological relationships between among the both genders were not too much discussed, but in modern era there was no remain mystery. Man has to live by clock. लोग जो है वो मशीन्स की तरह रहते थे, मतलब उनकी एक फिक्स टाइम पीरियड थी. दे डिस्कनेक्ट देम से विद अदर्स, मतलब बिजी उठना, काम करना, दे ऑल दिस थिंग. लाइक वी हैव द होलो मैन. तो मॉडर्न जो टाइम का जो इंसान था, दे वर लाइक अ होलो मैन. लेक ऑफ बिलीव इन गॉड, जो खुदा के ऊपर जो ईमान था वो भी कम था लोगों का, बिकॉज दे हैव सो मेनी क्वेश्चन रिगार्डिंग गॉड. Virginia Woolf, known for works such as Mrs. Dalloway and To Be the Lighthouse. T.S. Eliot, renowned for poems like The Waste Land and the love songs of J. Alfred Prufrock. James Josiah, famous for his novels, Ulysses. Josiah is a key figure in modernist literature. His innovative use to language and narrative structure has a profound influence on subsequent generations of writers. Then we can see the language modern period and the modernist period, which roughly spanned from the late 19th to mid 20th century. There was a significant shift in literary ages. मॉडर्निस्ट पीरियड जो था वो ऑल डिफरेंट एजेस से बहुत ज़्यादा मुख्तलिफ था, क्योंकि इसके अंदर जो सब्जेक्ट था वो इंसान था, और इंसान के जो सवाल थे डिफरेंट चीज़ों के हवाले से उस पर जो था, तो राइटिंग स्टाइल भी जो टोटल डिफरेंट था इसके अंदर. दे उन्होंने जो है डिफरेंट थीम्स और डिफरेंट आइडियाज़ और डिफरेंट वेज को एक्सप्लोर किया था, जिसकी वजह से वो डिफरेंट चीज़ों को एक्सप्रेस कर सकें. स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस राइटर्स लाइक वर्जिना वुल्फ, जिसका टू द लाइट हाउस था, एंड जेम्स जोकर एम्प्लॉयड स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस. एंड ये वो राइटर थे जिन्होंने काम किया था स्ट्रीम ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस. देन फ्रेगमेंटेशन. Modern literature often featured fragmented structure, mirroring the fractured nature of the post-World War One or World War वर्ल्ड वार वन. दिस इज़ एविडेंट इन टी एस इलियट्स द वेस्टलैंड. जो वर्ल्ड वार वन के बाद जो हालत कंडीशंस थी, विच वॉज आल्सो डिस्कस इन द टी एस इलियट वर्क द वेस्टलैंड. सिम्बलिज्म एंड इमेजनरी वर आल्सो यूज इन देयर वर्क. इस टाइम के अंदर राइटर जो है सिम्बोलिज्म और इमेजनरी को यूज़ करते थे, ताकि वो अपना जो आइडिया है या जो चीज़ वो एक्सप्रेस करना चाहते हैं वो डिफरेंट सिम्बोलिज्म को यूज़ करके वो अपने आइडिया को डिलीवर कर सके. फॉर एग्जांपल किचन सिंक ड्रामा हमारे पास एक एग्जांपल ऐसे नॉर्मली हम लेते हैं. अब किचन सिंक ड्रामा जो है वो एग्जैक्टली एक सिम्बोलिकली वर्ड जो यूज़ किया गया है, जो रिप्रेजेंट करता है डोमेस्टिक लाइफ को. एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन में इस पीरियड के अंदर राइटर्स आज जो भी पोइट्स वगैरह थे उन्होंने डिफरेंट एक्सपेरिमेंट किए थे, ताकि वो उस चीज़ को इस एज के अंदर जो चीज़ें हो रही थी उसको एक्सप्रेस कर सके. थैंक यू. दैट वाज आवर प्रेजेंटेशन.